Welcome back to Drive on the Wild Side, where today I'm comparing 8 generations of Honda Civic to see which one is best, starting with this, a 1974 Honda Civic RS. So the first Honda Civic came around in the 70s during the gas crisis in America, where there was a high demand for more fuel efficient cars, and Honda came in with the Civic. However, the Civic was very slow and didn't really appeal to many buyers, so Honda decided to spice it up a bit with the 1.2 litre engined Honda Civic RS. This has 76 horsepower, which I admit isn't a lot, but it is extremely light. And it managed to outsell its main competitor, which was the Golf Rabbit GTI. Right, so this has 75 horsepower, and well, it's going to be the slowest car I'm looking at today, and it manages to get to 60 in a very leisurely 11.3 seconds. Now, 10 years later came this, the Honda CRX, and that was sort of a sporty trim of the Honda Civic. Had a new body and a more sporty engine. In this case, this was a 1.5. However, this one has been tuned by a company called Mugen, who are responsible for tuning many of Honda's sportier cars, including the new Civic Type R and Honda S660. The Honda CRX was one of the coolest cars of the 80s, without a doubt. In fact, its design actually came from Alfa Romeo. I'll picture this car here. And this car was praised back in the day for being one of the most fun front-wheel drive cars that you could buy. And this car is particularly special. A company called Mugen got their hands on this car and wanted to promote it by displaying it at the Tokyo Auto Show. And, well, the audience was amazed. This car featured a built-out engine with 120 horsepower. It also featured a roll cage, new suspension, new wheels, and, well, handled much better. This thing was extremely fast. In fact, was probably faster than the Golf GTI. However, let's just confirm that. And 60 in 9.2 seconds, and that's pretty reasonable. A couple of years later, Honda had developed something new, something called VTEC, which temporarily introduces a more aggressive cam into the engine, making the engine rev a little bit faster once you get past a certain RPM. And it was a hit. In fact, this car uses the famous B16 engine. It is the Honda CRX SiR. This Japan-only car has 160 horsepower. You may remember this from a video where I compared various hot hatches from various countries, and this completely destroyed all the competition because it was just so much faster and just handled way better. It's also just such an awesome car. However, the one thing I don't really like is it's not that practical. In Europe, we got this little bench seat on the back, which, trust me, is tiny. And in America, you didn't even get a back seat. Apparently, you just got 2 seats in the front. I mean, what's the point of that? However, it apparently made this car quite popular as a pizza delivery vehicle. But how fast is the CRX? Well, let's do a 0-60 run again and let's find out what we're dealing with. And surprisingly, it's the same as the old CRX. In the mid-90s, Honda stopped making the CRX, which was a real shame. However, they immediately clawed their way back up into our hearts with this, the original Honda Civic Type R. This featured an all-new 1.8 litre VTEC engine, and this was the craziest Civic yet and the most powerful. This car produced 185 horsepower, which was insane numbers for a front-wheel drive car. Again, it had amazing handling, and it was just such a blast to drive, and as a result, it's one of the most sought-after Civics in the world. It is just such a piece of automotive history, and I think it's definitely one of my favourite cars on this list. How fast is this Civic though? Well, let's find out what those 185 horsepower can do. Well, a lot of torque steer, that's for sure. And it got this car to 60 in 7.3 seconds. After the millennium, Honda came out with this, the Honda Civic Type R EP3. Now, today I'd say that this is the sort of best bang for buck, because examples of this car can be found all day for less than £5,000. And it is such a good way of getting into a Honda Civic, because I mean, this is a brilliant little car, and back in the day was described as one of the most fun hot hatches. It's just so uncomplicated, it's front-wheel drive, really powerful, didn't really bother with any like clever diffs or all-wheel drive and stuff. This is just pure VTEC. This is a brilliant car. However, the one thing that annoys me is like where that shifter is. I mean, who's put that there? It's just such a weird place. The one in game features 212 horsepower, which is actually more than we got over here in the UK, and it should be way faster than the previous Civic. And it is 7 seconds dead to 60. In 2007, we moved to the point where Honda sort of really messed up the Civic Type R. In the UK, this is what we got. This sort of rather ugly, sort of squashed Prius looking thing, which had the same power as the previous Civic, and it was just way heavier, and they even screwed up the most important parts of the Civic, the handling. They put torsion beam rear suspension on it, which is what they use in the Beetle, as far as I'm concerned, and this thing is absolutely dreadful. I mean, I just hate the styling, the lack of power, and this has got to be the worst Civic. I mean, I think this is even worse than the first one. Now, I don't like this car at all, and I couldn't be bothered to test the 0 to 60, so I decided to have a bit of fun, and I turned on simulation damage and threw it off a mountain. Right, now I'm going to throw it off a mountain and see if I can get it to hit a cliff at 150 miles an hour. What could possibly go wrong? This is brilliant. This is proper entertainment right now. Mr. Tree. Let's see if I can hit this rock. Oh yes. That's not going to be moving. After that, Honda decided to redeem themselves by creating this, still built in Swindon. And the styling is still not very good. I mean, they sort of took the previous one and put some sparkly eyeliner on it. However, they did solve one thing: the power. This now develops 306 horsepower. And the other day, I'm not kidding, I saw one of these with L plates. I now don't care about the styling anymore. This car is just such a brilliant machine, and is just so underappreciated compared to its younger brother. However, let's see what that 300 horsepower can do. A lot of torque steer again. Can we beat the previous Civic? Yes we can. 6.2 seconds, which is rapid. And now we move on to the most modern Civic in the lineup, the FK8. Now, this was a radical redesign of the Civic. I mean, they could tell that we didn't like the previous designs, but I think Honda nailed this car. It's got all that 300 horsepower, and it's under such a crazy body. And for a while, it was one of the fastest front-wheel drive cars around the Nürburgring. However, there is one problem with this car: image. It's just nowhere near as refined as any of the other hot hatches, and I know hot hatches aren't supposed to be refined, but you still want to look good behind the wheel, and I mean, this is a bit too childish. In fact, if I wanted a modern hot hatch, I would have a Renault Megane RS. It's just a way better car. I mean, it's just way more usable. Don't get me wrong, I love this car, but it's just not for me. However, let's move on and test the 0 to 60 time. Right, limited slip diff, pulling that power down off the line. Is this car faster than the previous Civic? It's got the same power, same engine. And, well, yes it is. 5.7 seconds. Out of all the cars today though, my personal favourite is this, the original. It just really captures the spirit of the Honda Civic. It handles well, it looks cool, and I love this thing to bits. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. Please like and subscribe for more in the future, and until next time, goodbye.